Hey fly tires, welcome back. I'm Matt, and thank you for stopping by the channel. And if this is your first time here and you want to learn some fly tying tips and tricks, maybe some cool new patterns, then subscribe. Click the bell button so you don't miss anything. Now today's pattern is number 28 in the Great Smoky Mountain series. This is called the Smoky Mountain Forktail. Now there's not a lot known about this pattern. Don Kirk learned about it from Sue Lunsford of Cosby, Tennessee in the 1970s. Sue said as a kid, she learned about the pattern in the 1930s when she would help her father and grandfather who tied it by going out in the yard and catching a chicken for the feathers. Now, can you imagine that? These guys 100 years ago, they didn't have the exotic materials we had. They tied with what they had. They tied with what they could find. Rabbits, squirrels, muskrat, chickens. And Sue tells a story that her father and grandfather didn't even use a vise. So one of these old mountain fly tires that could hold a size 14 hook in one hand, a handful of feathers and some thread in the other, and make an effective fly. That's just unbelievable to me. I can't imagine doing that. But that's how they had to do it 100 years ago. Now, it's not a very common pattern. In fact, it's pretty unique. I haven't seen a lot of other flies like this, but we know it still works. People still tie it. I used it on the Savage River earlier this year and had a really good day during a sulfur hatch with it. So it's really a pretty cool fly. I think you're going to like it. Let's give it a shot. There it is in the vise, the Smoky Mountain Forktail, the biot version. A good size for this pattern is 12, 14, or 16. I'm tying this on a size 12. It's a 1X long barbless dry fly hook. I'm using 70 denier thread. I'll put a base down to the start of the bend. And straighten my hook back up. Now let's tie in the tail. I'm using olive goose biots. I've used brown before too, but I'm a little partial to olive just because I had a really good day on the Savage River earlier this year with the olive version. Not to say that the brown version wouldn't have worked great that day, but I just had a lot of luck with the olive, so that day it became my favorite. Now, what I will do when tying in biots like this, especially this pattern, they are really spread out. So you almost want to lay them on top and an X. And I've just got a couple of loose wraps right now. And I will put maybe a couple more before I really lock it in. Make sure it's not going to spin on me. And see, those are laying a little bit too much on top of each other. So what I do and what I tell myself, I will give myself one shot to get it right with, putting them on here both at the same time. And if I can't get it right after one try, I will tie them in one at a time. So I'm not going by that rule right now. I tried it twice and I think I got it. So that's the split I want right there. I will take this thread up front, and you can snip these off or you can just bury them. Whatever you think is going to be quicker. You don't have to worry about building bulk on the body because it is a hair dubbed body. So there's my tail. I'm going to split maybe, 30 degrees? That's about what I want. So let's put some wax on our thread and put some dubbing on. I'm going to use rabbit. Rabbit I've found has looked the best. I tried it with some beaver a little while ago, and the beaver was just a little bit too buggy. So I'm putting a fairly thick noodle on here, maybe 3 inches or so. And then I'm going to wrap it up just a little bit farther up than I would for a typical dry fly, and I'll show you why in just a minute. Now, you can tell that body's a little bit longer than you might normally want to do on a dry fly, and it's because I'm going to be tying wings almost like a prince nymph, but it's a dry fly, on top, and if I tied them on directly to the hook shank, then they would be canted way up. And I want to tie them in flatter, so I'm going to put my thread back on a little bit of that body and then lay these on here, another X, and about the same angle as you did for the tail, maybe even just a little bit wider. So I'm going to put 2 loose wraps right there and then check that position. That's about the angle I want, but I want them coming up a little bit more, so I will try to manipulate these before I lock them in. Okay, I think that's going to work right there. I'm putting some tight wraps on right now. And I'm going to go ahead and snip off the front of these biots and build a little flat area for wrapping the hackle. So just try to clean this up a little bit. Get this area flat right here. Take your thread back to the front of those wings. Maybe even a wrap farther back, because I'm going to put some heavy hackle on this thing. And like most Smoky Mountain flies, it's a Grizzly hackle. Is that going to be long enough right there? That might be a little bit longer than I need, so I'm going to take a few more of these fibers off right here and start it at just a little bit more toward the tip of this feather. So I'll catch this in with a concave side toward the hook with a little bit of bare stem showing and a few tight wraps to lock that stem in. Reach in here and snip this off close. Now leave your thread hanging where you want to end your hackle. And how much hackle do we put on this thing? I guess as much as you can get. 4 or 5 good turns. It's a heavily hackled fly. And I've already lost count. That's probably my 4th one right there. So let's go, I'm gonna go 2 more. This one might end up being 6 on there. So I'll take this thread back a couple of turns and catch it in with 2 wraps. And before I snip off this extra feather, I'm going to go ahead and pull these back and try to work on cleaning up this head. If I can do that without too many fibers pointing forward, it will make for a cleaner looking head. So I think that's back far enough. Get in here quickly and do my whip finish before any of those fibers start poking back forward. Try to do 4 or 5 turns without trapping any of them. And that worked. Doesn't always work, but it did tonight. So go ahead and snip my thread off. And now I can reach in here and snip this excess hackle. And if we have any cleanup, if you got anything going crazy, I got one going forward right there. I'll just go ahead and take care of that guy. And a drop of head cement, and the Smoky Mountain forktail is done. It's a pretty cool looking pattern, not too hard to tie. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.